The cabin stood alone. Its weathered wood and sagging roof told tales of years gone by, hidden deep within the woods. The forest seemed to guard it jealously, shrouding it in mist and mystery. It had been years since it last knew life. The walls, once echoing with laughter, now stood silent. Dust coated every surface, cobwebs draped like macabre decorations. The old man, John, stepped inside. He shivered. The cold seemed to seep into his bones. The air felt heavy, oppressive. It was as if the cabin itself was burdened by the weight of its own history. John had come seeking solace, peace from a life that had dealt him a harsh hand. He lit a fire in the old stone fireplace. The flames crackled, danced, casting flickering shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The light and shadow played together. He settled into a dusty armchair. The silence of the woods pressed in. Here John hoped to find peace. Night came quickly. The sky, once painted in hues of orange and pink, now turned a deep inky blue, swallowing the last remnants of daylight. The forest outside the cabin windows grew dark, menacing. The trees, once welcoming, now loomed like silent sentinels. John added another log to the fire. The flames roared, casting a warm, flickering glow, briefly pushing back the shadows that danced at the edge of his vision. He poured himself a cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the room. The silence was broken only by the crackling fire, each pop and hiss amplified in the stillness. A low growl of thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was coming. Rain began to fall, softly at first, then with increasing urgency. A sudden crash from downstairs made John jump. He froze, listening. His heart pounded in his chest. Silence. He told himself it was just an animal. The storm. Anything but what his gut told him it was. He grabbed the heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace, his only weapon. He crept down the stairs, each step creaking under his weight, the sound deafening in the silence. He reached the bottom of the stairs. He listened, strained to hear anything over the roar of the wind and the pounding rain. The hairs on the back of John's neck stood on end. He could feel it now. A presence, cold, malevolent. It was in the air, thick and suffocating. He raised the fireplace poker. His hand trembled. A whisper, barely audible, seemed to come from the shadows in the corner of the room. John spun around. His heart hammered against his ribs. He saw nothing. "Who's there?" he croaked. His voice sounded weak, uncertain. The only answer was the wind howling outside. John retreated back to the living room. His eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of the whisper. He told himself it was his imagination, the stress, the storm. He sat down heavily in the armchair, trying to calm his racing heart. A flash of lightning illuminated the window. John's blood ran cold. A face, pale, distorted, pressed against the glass, staring at him with empty black eyes. He screamed, a primal sound of fear. The face vanished, gone as quickly as it had appeared. John scrambled to his feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He backed away from the window, never taking his eyes off it. He could still feel it, watching him. He stumbled back to the fireplace. The flames seemed to offer little comfort now. The shadows danced more menacingly than before, whispering secrets he couldn't quite hear. He threw another log onto the fire, trying to keep the darkness at bay. The storm raged on, relentless and unforgiving, as if nature itself was in turmoil. The wind howled like a banshee, its eerie wails echoing through the night. The rain beat against the windows with a ferocity that seemed almost personal. Each sound grated on John's nerves, fraying them further with every passing second. He sat there for hours, staring into the flames, seeking answers to the questions that plagued his mind. His mind replayed the terrifying image of the face at the window, a ghastly apparition watching him. He noticed something on the mantelpiece, half hidden in the dust. A photograph, long forgotten. He picked it up, wiped the grime away with trembling hands, revealing the image beneath. It was a group of people standing in front of the cabin, their expressions frozen in time. Their faces were obscured by the passage of time, blurred and indistinct like ghosts of the past. But something about their eyes, it sent a chill down his spine. Those eyes seemed to follow him, piercing through the veil of time. John's blood ran cold. He recognized the cabin, the trees. The layout was identical. But these people, their eyes, they were the same, empty, black, full of malice. He dropped the photo as if it burned him. The room seemed to grow colder. He could feel their presence now surrounding him, closing in. Their eyes burned into him, mocking his fear. He was trapped, alone with whatever evil had claimed this cabin as its own. John knew he had to get out, escape the suffocating presence that pressed in on him. He stumbled towards the front door, fumbling with the lock, his hands shaking so badly he could barely grip the doorknob. The door burst open. He ran, blindly, desperately. The rain lashed at his face, the wind tore at his clothes. He didn't care. He just had to get away from that place. He could hear them behind him, their laughter echoing through the woods. John didn't stop running until he reached the edge of the woods. He collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, soaked to the bone. He looked back at the cabin. It stood silhouetted against the rising sun. Dark, menacing, as if nothing had happened. He got up and stumbled towards the road. He never looked back. He never spoke of what he had seen that night, but the memory of that terrifying night in the cabin stayed with him, a chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. If you liked this video, like it and subscribe to my channel.